we're going to get into some spoilerish detail here. So come back and watch this part of it after you see it. Hopefully you see it this weekend.
If you do see it, you are going to love it so much that fire will shoot out of your eyes. You will want to marry it. You'll definitely be willing to bear its children. If you are a man and you can't physically bear, you will get a sex change in order to bear the children of this movie. So I suggest you go see it and then come back and talk spoilers with us.
This is what I work with every day, right here. So so Mad Max is probably, though, here's the suck part of this whole thing. It's probably going to lose this weekend to Pitch Perfect 2.
It is, but
and that's no ill will towards Pitch Perfect 2, but I kind of wish, I wish Mad Max didn't open up in the summer. Why not open something like this in March? It's not like you haven't had years of this thing sitting there.
Well, it wasn't. I don't think it was sitting there for years. I think there were complications.
Shot it in 2012.
Yeah, but I mean, there were complications. I do agree. They should have opened it up in March. I think if they'd opened up in February or March, it would have killed. Yeah. And there wouldn't have been competition, and it would have had a great run and made a lot of money. It's definitely not going. Pitch Perfect will win the weekend. Yeah. It has a broader appeal. I think even within genre fans, there will be those that don't relate to Mad Max. It's a crazy.
It's been 30 years since the last one, and honestly, like when we really started doing a lot of promotional stuff on that movie about a year ago, when right around the time of Comic-Con, when the first footage dropped. You know, I asked a lot of 20-somethings, like, you ever seen Mad Max? They had no idea who the hell Mad Max was.
Yeah, I mean, but it's funny because I am curious to see the people that haven't seen the original films, what they make of it. But most of the people that I
to see them either to enjoy this.
Yeah, and most of the people I talked to that hadn't loved this one. They loved Fury Road. I think it adds something if you know the original films. If you love Road Warrior, you definitely love this movie. But even if you haven't seen them, I think that you will enjoy it. Now, it's insane. Like, there is so much bat shit insanity about this movie, which is one of the things that I love about it. But I do wonder how broad of an appeal it has. I think it'll do well over time. Word of mouth will be good.
Do you think it'll do well internationally? Maybe that's all it really needs.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kingsman was one of those things that sort of built over time. And even last year we were so upset because Edge of Tomorrow didn't do well. But it did over time. Yeah. You know, it did fine. Like, it sort of built and built and built.
Yeah, I am hoping that Mad Max could kind of be like another Kingsman, where maybe it'll never be #1, but it's going to hang up there in the top 5 for a while. The only problem is that, you know, Avengers is still in theaters, and it does cannibalize some of the same audience. I really do hope Fury Road, it's just a magnificently done action movie.
Let's talk about why we love it as much as we do.
You first.
Okay, I just don't even know where to start. Okay, first of all, I remember that opening sequence, right? So there's like a 5-minute, and I guess if you guys have seen it, there's this 5-minute opening sequence. It just starts, bam, like, here's Max. He's totally crazy and eating 2-headed lizards. You get the world that you're in. Up is down, down is up. Nothing makes sense. It's mayhem.
He's got the old car back.
He's got the old, it's the...
Interceptor, right?
No, yeah, it's the, I think, isn't it the Pursuit Special? That crashed in Road Warrior that he has back now. Anyway, whatever. So there's not a direct continuity, but he takes off, and it's this insane chase. You don't even know who's chasing him or why, and suddenly he's taken captive and like beaten and branded, and then he's about to jump out into this mad pit of people and pulled back, and that's the open. Yeah. And I mean, this was the whole movie.
That's how you start. And then the fact that the bulk of the story is just simply one long car chase.
It's a long car chase, but what's really neat about it is that in the midst of this long car chase, though people will say this isn't true, I think you get a ton of story and a ton of character development. It's just unusually executed. So like, it introduces you to people in insane ways. It doesn't take time to tell you who Furiosa is. Yeah. It's just she's jetting off, you don't know why, and she's Furiosa. And then suddenly there's Rosie Huntington-Whiteley crawling out from underneath this truck. What?
And she's pregnant.
And she's pregnant. What? And then it lets it unfold in this natural order. Oh, she's, over time you understand, this is the human cargo. She's escaping with them. And it doesn't belabor the idea that these are basically sex slaves. It just lets that be clear by what you're seeing of this world.
Let's talk about the villain, Immortan Joe, who I just thought was great. You know, I love the design of the character.
He was the toe cutter in the first movie.
Yes, he was. Was it Hugh Burns, Kingsley,
Burns,
something like that? Sorry, Hugh. But you know, I love that the look of the character and that sort of like he had kind of like the Bane mask thing going on a bit, but just that he was this insane warlord who maybe physically wasn't quite as powerful as he would let on. Yeah. But when he got behind the wheel of a car, you know, he could
was
take
just
care
dynamic.
of business. And essentially that he was using all these, you know, beautiful young women as essentially baby factories for him.
And then those women that were just like milked, you know,
yes.
They were human cows, you know, and cruel, you know, like that would be really painful.
I mean, it was like basically a human puppy mill.
Yeah, a human puppy mill. It was terrible. But there's so much, and I think that this is the thing that's easily missed because it is this insane action movie, and the action is so awesome, and so much of it. I know there was a lot more effects used in this in terms of like that gorgeous snow sandstorm and the lightning, but a lot of this action is done practically. But I think that's what one of the things that is missed is the level of detail in this world. Yeah. So much is filled out about this world, and one of the things that George Miller, I saw a Q&A with him, we did. Yeah, and one of the things that he was saying was that even in the midst, any time in human history, no matter where it is or how rough things are, people will make beautiful things. Yeah. They will create. Yeah. You know, whether it's cave paintings or in this case, a insane vehicular Viking culture. Yeah. Where the
steering wheels are like worshipped.
The steering wheels are worshipped. You spray paint your mouth before you kind of like
do a suicide run.
And it's this chant of die, born again. Yeah. That he's convinced.
Yeah, the War Boys. These guys were great. You know?
And the cool thing about the Mad Max...
Nicholas Hoult, amazing in it.
Oh my God, so good. Yeah. And they show the cost of the world. He's got those tumors that he's made into friends. Yeah. And Immortan Joe has tumors all over his body, right? Like, they're sick. Yeah. There's radiation everywhere.
They're also hoarding all the water. Yeah. And so you see, at the very beginning, you just see all the people basically coming like... It looks like they're there to worship, but really are just waiting for him to turn on the spigot so they can get some water. Yeah. You know?
I think it's fascinating if you do know the whole series. I think one of the things that's fascinating is to watch the evolution of the world, which is like, it's still kind of normal in Mad Max. It's just kind of falling apart. By Road Warrior, it's definitely fallen apart, but they're still hopeful that they can get somewhere. Then in Thunderdome, and I get it, people don't love Thunderdome, but what's interesting is how...
I like Thunderdome. So do I. Fun.
Yeah. I do too. That it's such a fragmented
Is that the
world.
one where she goes, "Where you going? Raggedy Man."
Raggedy Man.
Yeah.
Tina Turner.
Right.
Master Blaster. Yeah. Captain Walker. Anyway, that one shows that because there's not an interconnected world anymore, it's like split into these fragmented societies. Yeah. Where like Bartertown is one thing and it's got its whole culture, but then the kids who've been raised in this cave has like this whole other culture. And you're seeing Max is just kind of leading you through, and this society, this culture in Fury Road is yet another one that's created this whole mythology.
Yeah, it's also too like it uses a Western trope of like they used to call it the traveling angel, like Shane or on TV, where the gunfighter would ride into town, clean it up, and ride off. Yeah, I mean that's basically Max, except in a post-apocalyptic landscape, you know.
What did you think of his Max as compared to Mel Gibson?
I actually found him surprisingly low key. I remember, you know, Mel Gibson's Max being a little bit more ticky. Yeah. But that's kind of Mel Gibson in general. And there was a bit of that with Max at the beginning when he's all chained up and first fights with great fight with Furiosa and the brides, and there's the chain, and he's dragging Nux along with him. But you know, it's ultimately kind of not really his movie. It's really Furiosa's story.
Yeah, she's the driver. I mean, literally and figuratively.
Yeah,
she's driving the story.
And he is sort of really just the eyes of the audience in a way. Do you think then, I mean, some people have, that's the one criticism I've heard is that, you know, he's a passenger in his own movie. Do you agree with that? Or?
I think it becomes. I actually think they're kind of co-leads. I think that Max brings us into these worlds, and then there's a figure in that world that becomes the driving force, and it's Furiosa in this world. Like was taken as a little kid and brought into this crazy culture. Who knows what happened to her?
Right.
And she's trying to get back.
She obviously lost her arm at some point.
She lost her arm at some point, and she's trying to get back to what she's. Every single one of these movies has the dream of the better world, which never ultimately exists, and it's kind of sad. But but I think it's weird because moving forward in the franchise, I do think you could either go with Furiosa, or you could have Max lead us into another strange world, you know, or another corner of this world.
What was the name of the place she was trying to get to? Something, the land of many
land
of many
land.
Mothers or whatever.
Oh,
right?
the many mothers.
Yeah,
and
I love that. And then when you come across that group, and the fact that name one other action movie that has so many female senior citizens kicking ass.
Well, it's not even just that. It's that you have, that's awesome. Like the grandmas like kicking butt. But it's that you have such a range of interesting and out there characters. You know, like this does not follow any of the normal tropes. Like he's just like, the world's gone to pot. It's insane. What would happen? You know, and everyone sort of has to live together in such close proximity. So you've got Rosie Huntington Whiteley, you know, who is like an ungodly beautiful woman, next to any other freak that exists in that world. You know, the warrior boys, war boys who are like these clearly dying. They know they're dying. They know they're really unhealthy.
Even when you do see them as literally as boys, you know, there's something sad about them because they're like just indoctrinated right from the get-go as like, this is all you will be. Yeah. You know? They have like, their identity is essentially null and void, you know?
And that's how vivid are these characters. And I think that, I really do think that one of the things that's lost is people are like, oh, it's all action. No, it's amazing action. But the reason you're invested in the story is like, through the action, you are getting to know these characters.
I mean, character is revealed through action. It's one of the oldest things, and it, in this case, it just so happens that he is just on a goddamn pole going back and forth between like cars on fire and killing dudes.
Nicholas Hoult actually has probably the biggest arc in the movie, right? Like from going to be on one side to he has kind of a hero's journey. Yeah. I have to say, in terms of like bat insanity, is the fact that the war music is live. Like
they bring their own theme music.
They bring their own. They've got like drummers out there, and the guitar was shooting.
It was like a marching band for football or something, you know. Yeah. But you know, you bring the band with you when you go into war.
But that happened back in the day. Like there were even like in colonial times, there were
bagpipers and drummer boys and all that. But I just love it too because there's that. I think it's the first shot where you hear the music. You're like, oh, it's just the score, and then
it's like actual people.
The guy is just, you're like, oh my god, this movie's going to be so insane. I love it already. What did you think of? Because a lot has been said about how it's in some ways as much of, or perhaps even more so, a female empowerment story as Pitch Perfect 2, which it'll probably lose against. I mean, people think, oh, it's a guy movie or whatever, however you want to diminish a movie in that regard or label it. But like, there really is. I can't think of a lot of other movies this year that have had such a strong batch of female characters, and not strong just because they have guns and stuff. Like there's a grit and a spirit, especially like Charlize Theron is great.
Yeah, Furiosa I think is an amazing character, but you can't discount the brides. And what's cool about the brides is that they're not meant to be good fighters, and in fact, like her character, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, doesn't want them to kill.
Yeah.
She's very much a mother,
Yeah.
figure, and I kind of liked that too. Yeah, I think that but I wish people would just look at it like, I think that that's true, but I wish people would just look at it like these are great characters,
Right,
and this is a really interesting story
Right.
across the board. And you know what I mean?
Let me ask you and again, we're obviously talking spoilers here, but well, you know what? I just realized our cameraman hasn't seen the movie, and I don't want to spoil it for him. So
we've already ruined all of it for him. He's
all right.
done.
So Rosie, Rosie buys it.
She does.
They kill the pregnant woman in the movie.
Sad.
Was it so? No, she fell.
No, I said it's so sad.
Oh, so sad. I thought you said suicide.
No.
I was
She fell. She
yeah.
fell.
So, I mean,
heroically.
how do you think that's going to go over? Because then you have the whole thing of like, it was a boy and I had a brother and he was perfect and all that. Like, do you think, is that going to go over okay with American audiences?
I don't know. I mean, I think that...
I assume it did. I mean, the church scene in Kingsman got through okay, so...
I think that you can't have a movie like this and have no cost, and like she obviously, the thing that he cared about, because she was still alive, but he wanted to cut the baby out in case the baby could still live, and that's probably what really killed her.
Yeah.
She might have died anyway.
Yeah.
But if you think about like who he's choosing as his wives, I think I was calling them the brides, which is what we'd been calling them, but they're the wives.
Is that what they're actually called them? I thought they were called the brides.
They're called the wives.
The wives, okay.
Yeah. He's choosing these genetically perfect women in the hopes that they will have genetically stable and perfect children, which is like scientifically not a bad bet to make, But yeah, I think he cared about he liked the brides and the wives because they're very pretty. But he wanted to make babies, and he wanted to make babies that would live.
Because he sees some of his other children. He's got that one giant muscle head, Rictus or whatever his name is, and then the guy who is the little guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing is like for him the biggest tragedy is losing a baby that would have been healthy and whole, in that world, which I'm sure would be very hard to do.
Yeah.
Because they don't have clean water and clean food.
Yeah. Now, were there any elements of that movie you would have liked to have seen explored a little further, or was there anything about it that left you wanting a little more?
It's funny. Scott and I talked about this because they have like the little sort of Max and Furiosa are both looking for redemption. Max is always, he's never really looking for redemption. He's just always like gets into a situation where he's like, well, I guess I'm going to help these people now, despite himself. And that kind of happens here. But he has that little girl
yeah, it's supposed to be his daughter, right?
Yeah,
it's supposed to be flashbacks to like.
We assume so now, and because that's a little unclear. I don't really care because I can make up the story myself about what that's about.
You'll fanfic it, yeah.
I'll fanfic it. I mean, in the original,
I'm pretty
movie,
sure she says "daddy" at one point, but
in the original movie, his son
wife
and his wife
kid get killed, right?
Yeah, it's like his
run over, right?
Yeah, they do. It's like his 2-year-old son and his wife. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And then so it's like, I assume in this movie it's a little bit different for him, but that he lost them and he feels responsible.
Yeah.
And he goes to great lengths to keep Furiosa alive as a result.
Right.
But at the end of the movie, he wanders off, which he always does, and it's like, Max, why don't you just chill somewhere? But no, he can't do that. So he wanders off, and I would assume if we were to get another one, which I don't know that in 10 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. Because this one took ages, like a generation basically to
I would guess the studio would want to keep Furiosa involved somehow, but that would be very different for a Mad Max movie. You don't ever have, you have actors return as different characters, which is a whole thing. But
yeah. Well, and also, and we're not going to gossip too much, but there was a lot of rumors that Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy did not get along.
Yeah.
Like really disliked each other. So I think it would be difficult, if that stuff is true, to see those two together again. There was one rumor that one would be a prequel about Furiosa and the other one would be a sequel with Max, but I kind of like that Furiosa was maybe a one and done character because sometimes explaining what happened to a character robs them of their mystique. And we talked about that with Boba Fett last week. And I kind of feel like I felt like I learned as much as I needed to know about Furiosa.
Will you go see this movie again?
Yeah. Definitely, it's a movie you have to see on the big screen.
Yeah.
It is worth your money to do that. Like, Pitch Perfect, honestly, you could wait till Netflix, But Mad Max, you need a crowd and you need the biggest presentation possible, and you really do get your money's worth out of this. So, I mean, I'm all for it.
I love this movie. I really love it. I'm going to go see it again.
One little tidbit about it, the actress who plays, I think her character is the Valkyrie or whatever, but beautiful woman, the long black hair that, that was Wonder Woman in George Miller's never made Justice League movie. Megan Gale.
Wow.
She was cast as Wonder Woman in that movie. And you look at her here and you're like, wow, she would have made a fantastic Wonder Woman. And can you only imagine what his Justice League movie would have been like?
Insanely awesome.
The action, that Batman, Superman kind of fighting action would have been amazing.
And the crazy thing is that for an entire generation, this will not be George Miller's return to Mad Max. It will be from the man who brought you Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to the most insane action ride you've seen all year. Sorry.